Hi everyone, this is 9.9's post test, which is working with surface area and volume. So it's kind of taking the last two post tests that were due and putting them together. Fortunately, neither of these post tests, or neither these these questions of this post test are not as involved as the surface area questions from two post tests ago. They're not as ridiculously difficult. So let's get started. We have a sphere with a volume of 3,600 cubic inches, and we want to find the surface area. So again, this just comes from a formula of a volume of a sphere. So the volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. And eventually, we want to find the surface area. And the surface area of a sphere is 4 pi r squared. So in both these formulas, the key is the only way we're going to be able to solve for surface area is if we use this formula to find the radius. So the goal of this question is to find the radius so that we can use the surface area formula. So in our volume formula, we also know what the volume is. Okay, for me, it's 3,600. So I'm going to substitute that in for V, and we have 4/3 pi r cubed. And now I just need to take this equation and solve it for r, the radius. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of this 4/3. Okay, you can do this in one step, you can do this in two steps, okay, whatever you're more comfortable with. I'm going to show it in two steps. So I'm going to get rid of the fraction of this dividing by 3 by multiplying both sides by the 3. Okay, on the right side, the 3's are going to cancel out. On the left, I have 3,600 times 3. So now I have 10,800 equals 4 pi r cubed. Okay, next I'm going to get rid of the 4. It's all multiplication, so I'm going to divide it. So I'm taking this 10,800 and I'm going to divide it by 4. 2,700 equals, now here the 4's cancel, so now I have pi r cubed. And now I'm going to divide by pi. So now I have 2,700 divided by pi. Okay, so 2,700 divided by pi. Now we're going to get a long decimal here because we're dividing by pi. The directions do say to round to the nearest whole number as needed, but that's going to be at the very, very end. Now, we don't need to write out this whole decimal, okay, because that's ridiculous, but I would go like 4 or 5 decimal places. Okay, we don't want to round here. Okay, so that's a key here. So I'm going to write 859.43669. Okay, 859.43669. So I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 decimal places is what I went to. Okay, equals my r cubed. Okay, but the goal is to get r. R right now is getting raised to the third power. So to undo that, I have to undo raising to the third power, which is cube rooting. So I'm going to cube root both sides. Okay, I believe there is a button on a phone calculator to cube root. On my calculator here, I actually have to hit second, and then the cube root button is here. It's the cube root of x. Okay, I believe you should see this on your phone calculator as well. You just have to turn it sideways. So I'm going to hit the cube root, and that will cube root my number. Now, because I had it stored in my calculator, which again you might be able to do on your phone, I actually didn't. It actually had the full decimal here, so no rounding was needed. I didn't even need to write this number down. So this is my radius. Again, now I'm going to write it down with some decimal places. So I have 9.5 9.5076. Okay, so we'll do 4 places here. 9.5076 is my approximate radius. Okay, so now I know my radius is, so now I can use the surface area formula, which is what it wants to do, or what it's asking for. So now my surface area is going to be 4 times pi times my radius, which is here, squared. So that 9.5076 squared. Okay, so to find this, I'm actually going to clear this. I have 9.5076 squared, so that just means multiplying it by itself. So 9.5076 times 9.5076 is this decimal, 90.39, times 4, this 4, times pi. And then we have the surface area, and it says round to the nearest whole number. So I have 1135.9, but rounded to the nearest whole number, this 0.9 is going to raise that by 1, so 1136, and that inches squared, and that will be the surface area. Okay, so a key with this one is to not really round too much until the very, very end. Okay, we don't want to round this number. We didn't want to round this number. Okay, we don't want to round until the end. Okay, next question is, we have a sphere with a surface area of 16 pi, and to find its radius, diameter, and volume. Okay, so we have a sphere, and we know the surface area of it. Okay, surface area of a sphere is 4 pi r squared. Okay, that's the formula for surface area of a sphere, and it's giving us what the surface area is. So it's saying this is 16 pi. So I'm just going to substitute that in, because one of the questions it's asking for is now the radius. So we can solve this now for r. So to do that, I'm going to divide both sides by 4 pi to get r isolated. Okay, here the 4 pi's cancel out. Here the pi's will cancel out, and I'm left with just 16 divided by 4, which is 4. So I get 4 is equal to r squared. And to solve for r, I have to undo the square. To undo a square is square root. So I'm going to square root both sides, and the square root of 4 is 2. So I get my radius is 2. The next question is asking for the diameter, and the diameter is just double the radius. So if my radius is 2, my diameter is double that. Double 2 is 4. And now it's asking for that sphere's volume. Okay, so I found my radius, which is good, but now it's asking for the volume. And the volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. Well, I already know what my radius is, which is nice, so I can just substitute that in. So I have 4/3 pi times my radius cubed. Okay, it says to simplify and to type the expression in terms of pi, which means we're going to leave pi as pi in this case. So the first thing I'm going to do is do 2 cubed. Okay, cubing something means multiplying by itself 3 times, so this really means 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. So I have 4/3 pi times 8. Okay, and then to simplify, I'm going to multiply the 4/3 and the 8. So this 8 is like 8/1. So I'm going to multiply 4 times the 8, the numerator with numerator, which is 32. The pi is in the numerator, over, and my denominator is 3 times 1, which is 3. So I get 32 pi over 3. I just want to check to make sure this does not simplify, and 3 cannot go into 32. So this is the answer, 32 pi over 3. And that's actually what I'm going to type in. So I have 32 pi divided by 3. Okay, this next question is, we have the volume of this box, we have 2 of the dimensions, and it's asking us to find x. Okay, well, volume of a box is just length times width times height. I have 2 of the dimensions. Okay, it doesn't really matter what's length, what's width, what's height. Just know that we have 11 times 15 times x is going to be my volume, and I know what my volume is. So I'm going to substitute my V for 907.5 equals, and then I'm going to multiply this 11 times 15 is 165 times x. And now we can solve this for x by dividing both sides here by 165. So my answer here is going to be 907.5 divided by 165. And I get 5.5. Doesn't say anything about rounding, so I'm writing 5.5. Next question here, we have a triangular prism that has base edges 4 centimeters, 6 centimeters, and 8 centimeters long. And we have its lateral area is 450 centimeters squared. What is the height of the prism? Okay, so we know the lateral area of this triangular prism. Okay, a lateral area just has a formula. It's the perimeter times the height. Okay, the perimeter times the height. And what's nice here is we have the 3 dimensions of our triangle, so we can find the perimeter. Okay, the perimeter here is just going to be around this triangle, so it's just going to be adding the edges. So it's 4 plus 6 plus 8. My 3 dimensions, or my 3 edges, I should say. 4 plus 6 plus 8. Okay, 4 plus 6 is 10. 10 plus 8 is 18. So my perimeter here is 18 centimeters times my height equals my lateral area. Okay, and my lateral area it's giving to me is 450. So now I can solve this for h, which is what it's asking. So I just have to divide both these sides by 18. So I have 450 divided by 18, which is 25. So 25 centimeters is the height. Okay, this question very similar to the last box one. Okay. Now we have a figure. We know that this is 6, this is 6, and we know the volume. Okay, so it's asking for the height. Okay, don't assume anything that this is a cube. It very well might be a cube. Okay, but we can't assume for right now. So I'm just gonna, volume again is length times width times height. I know 2 of these are 6, so I have 6 times 6 times height. And I know that my volume is 216. Again, it gives it to me here. So I'm just going to solve this for h. I have 216 equals 6 times 6 is 36 times h. I'm going to divide both sides by 36. And 216 divided by 36 is 6. So in this case, all 3 dimensions were 6. So this was a cube. Okay, but don't just assume based on it looking like a cube. Okay, actually solve it out. Okay, next question, we have the volume of a cylinder is 352 pi cubic centimeters. The radius of the base of the cylinders is 4 centimeters. what is the height of the cylinder. Okay, so we have the volume, we have the radius, and it's asking for the height of a cylinder. Volume of a cylinder is pi r squared times the height. Okay, so we're just going to substitute here what we know. I know that my volume is 352 pi. I know that my radius is 4. And I'm trying to find the height. Okay, so simplifying here a little bit, my radius, which is 4 squared, is 16. So this is 16 pi times h equals my 352 pi, which is what my volume was. And now I can solve this for h. So I'm going to divide both sides by 16 pi to get h isolated. Okay, so this will actually solve for h here. Here the pi's are going to cancel out. So all I have is 352 divided by 16, which is 22, and that gives me my height, 22 centimeters. Okay, this question might be the hardest here. I'm going to draw it here to the side because I'm going to have to do an additional step to show. So excuse my artwork. Okay, so this is 12, and then we have this. Okay, and then here's the right angle. So we have a plane that intersects a sphere to form a circle. So here's the circle. The distance from the center of the circle to the center of the sphere is 12 inches. If the area of the circle formed by the intersection is 1225 pi inches squared, so the area of the circle, it gives us what is the volume of the full sphere. Okay, so the only way we can find the volume of a sphere is if we know the radius of the sphere, which it does not give to us. It only has this 12 here. Okay, but it does tell us the area of the circle. Okay, so area is pi r squared of a circle. It's pi r squared, and it's giving us what that area is. So we can find what the radius of the circle is. And the radius of the circle is this distance right here. Okay, the radius of the circle is that distance right there. So we can find that. So I'm going to substitute in what my area of my circle is, which is 1225 pi equals my pi r squared. And now I'm going to solve this for pi. So, excuse me, solve this for r. So I'm going to divide both sides by pi. Okay, here the pi's cancel. Pi's cancel. So I have 1225 equals r squared. To solve for r, I'm going to get rid of this power of 2 by square rooting. So my radius here is going to be the square root of 1225. So again, I have to hit second here to get the square root button, which is this. So I have 1225 I'm going to type in, and then hit the square root button. And I get 35 is my radius. So that is, again, the radius of the circle. So that is this distance here. That's this distance here. But I need to find the radius of the sphere. What that distance is really this. It's this diagonal here. That is the radius of the sphere. Okay, it's from this distance to here is the radius of the sphere. And if you look at what we just created, I will draw it here. We just made a right triangle where we know two sides and we're trying to find a third side. Okay, in other words, the hypotenuse of this triangle across from the 90 degrees. So when we have two sides of a right triangle to find the missing side, we use Pythagorean theorem, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. My a is 12, so 12 squared, plus my b, which is 35, 35 squared equals c squared. Okay, just simplifying here, 12 squared is 144. 35 squared, we actually already did here, is 1225 equals c squared. So I have 144 plus 1225, which is 1369 equals c squared. And now I need to square root to solve for c. So again, coming here, the square root button, and I get 37 equals c, which means my radius is 37. So I just found the radius of my sphere. So now I can find the volume of the sphere. Okay, so volume of a sphere, again, is 4/3 pi r cubed. So substituting what we know, 4/3 pi, and I know my radius is 37. So now I have to do 37 cubed, just 37 times 37 times 37, which is a big number, 50,653 pi, and this 4/3. So now I'm going to multiply this by the 4 and divide by the 3. Okay, and unfortunately we get a decimal. So I'm going to clear this. I'm going to start here. I have 50,653 times 4 is this. So I have 202,612 pi over 3. So I divided this number by 3. Again, I'll write it 202,612. If I divide it by 3, I get a decimal, which means we can't divide it by 3. Okay, so this is going to be the answer. Okay, I know it's a huge number. Okay, and don't forget the pi divided by 3. Okay, so that one's a little bit trickier. Okay, a couple questions left. The lateral area of a cone is 5.6 pi inches squared. The radius is 2.8. Find the slant height. Okay, again, this is just a formula. Okay, lateral area is 1/2 times 2 pi r times the slant height, which we denote by this L. So this is the formula for our lateral area. Okay, we can simplify it a little bit. The 1/2 and the 2 will actually cancel each other out. So our lateral area is actually just pi times the radius times the slant height. Okay, I know what my lateral area is. It's 5.6 pi equals pi, and it gives me what my radius is as 2.8 times L, which means all we have to do is solve for this L, the slant height, by dividing both sides here by 2.8 pi. Okay, here the pi's will cancel out, the 2.8's will cancel out. I'm left with the L, which is the slant height. Here the pi's will cancel out. So all I have is 5.6 divided by 2.8, which is just 2. So my slant height here is 2 inches. Okay, and last question. We have a spherical balloon that has 22-inch diameter when it's fully inflated. Half of the air is let out of the balloon. Assume that the balloon remains a sphere when the air is let out. Find the volume of the fully inflated balloon. Find the volume of the half-inflated balloon and the diameter of the half-inflated balloon. Okay, so we're talking about volume of a sphere again. So volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. Pi r cubed. Okay, it's also telling us what the diameter is. Okay, it's saying the diameter is 22, but we really care about the radius to be able to use our volume formula. So the radius is half the diameter. So if my diameter is 22, my radius is going to be 11, okay, half of it. So now we can find the volume of the fully inflated balloon, because now I have the radius. So the volume will be 4/3 pi times my radius cubed. Okay, so to simplify this, I'm going to do 11 cubed. Again, cubing something means multiplying by itself 3 times, so 11 times 11 times 11, which is 1331. Times the 4/3 pi. So I'm going to multiply by 4 and divide by 3. So 1331 times 4 is 5,324 pi divided by 3. Now I'm going to see if I can actually divide by 3, and I cannot. So this is my volume, okay, because I got a decimal. This is my simplified volume of the fully inflated balloon. Okay, it does say use pi as needed to type an exact answer. So this is what I'm typing in. 5,324 pi divided by 3. And then we're letting out half the air. So half the volume of the balloon is coming out, which means the volume of the half-inflated balloon is just going to be half of what we just found, which means I'm going to have to divide this by 2, okay, which is the same thing as multiplying by a half. Okay, so we could multiply across and get a denominator of 6, but we can cross simplify as well. So this 5,324 can divide by 2. So that's actually what I'm going to do. So I'm going to just simplify my diagonals. So I'm doing 5,324 divided by 2 is 2,662. So my new volume will be 2,662 pi still over that 3. Okay, so that's half. It's basically just taking this number in the numerator and dividing it by 2. So 2,662 pi divided by 3 is half the volume. And now it wants to know the diameter of the balloon when it's half inflated, which means this is my new volume. So now I need to find the radius to be able to find the diameter. So again, we're using volume of a sphere, which is 4/3 pi r cubed, but now I'm using this volume. So I'm going to substitute that for V. So I have 2,662 pi over 3 equals 4/3 pi r cubed. Okay, if you notice both these we have both denominators of 3. So if we multiply both sides by 3, the 3's are going to cancel each other out. So we don't have the 3's anymore. So I'm going to put it over here. We have 2,662 pi equals 4 pi r cubed. Okay, I can divide now both sides by 4 pi. Here the pi's are going to cancel out. Here the 4 pi's will cancel out. So I really have 2,662 divided by 4, which is 665.5 equals r cubed. And now I need to find my radius. So to find r, it's getting cubed here, so I'm going to cube root it. Okay, cube root on both sides. So I have this number, hitting second, the cube root button is here. I cube roots it. Okay, it's 8.7 about is my radius, but it's asking for the diameter, so I have to double it. So I'm taking this number and multiplying it by 2, and I get about 17.4, and it says round to the nearest whole number. So notice I did not round until the very end, and now I'm going to round, so the nearest whole number here would be 17. Okay, if you rounded here, you'd say that this is rounded to 9, and then you double it and you'd get 18. Okay, but we don't want to round until the very end, so I took this, then doubled it, and then rounded from there. So that's the last question. Okay, so again, this post test will be due on Friday. Let me know if you have any questions. Email me, comment on Classroom.